there's a lot of people out on social media. So social media is a lot of hyperbole, a lot of people who are not licensed or registered to give advice, but they certainly don't hesitate to provide it to you. And they usually speak in big words and get you all excited and hyped up about one thing or that. It's not really about that. It's really about not trying to be wasteful with your money. Like, try to be smart with your money. Hey everybody, it's Bob Brown from Stonehouse, and I just wanted to switch the tables a little bit, or the chairs, if you will. With me today in the studio is Anna Layaou, who's helping us switch the tables by interviewing me for a change. And you can see I'm like bumping the microphone. This is kind of new to me to be on the receiving end of the questions, but Anna works with us on our marketing and all these podcasts that we do. And she wanted to do a topic about some of the most common questions that people come to us at Stonehouse about. And when I looked at these questions, I thought, geez, I know a lot of these answers because I've heard these for 25 or so years. And so she suggested that I get in the chair and receive the questions. So Anna, thanks for sitting in the chair and interviewing me for a change.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me on, Bob. As Bob mentioned, I'm a little bit more behind the scenes when it comes to the Blue Collar Wealth podcast, but I'm excited to be on this side of the camera for once.
Yeah, so am I. It's very lonely on the other side of the camera.
I can imagine.
But I'll throw it to you. You're in control. What questions do you have?
Awesome. So I have 5 easy questions for you. I say easy because you work with financial planning and investments every single day. But to viewers in our audiences who might not be super familiar with a lot of the financial terms that we do talk about typically on Blue Collar Wealth, I figured we would just take it back to the basics.
Sure.
So let's start with question 1. How much do I need for retirement?
Question 1. That's such a broad question. Let me just say this. I've been doing this for, 27-ish years. And we have a lot of folks in our office that have worked as long as I have, if not more. And out of all of our advisory team, I bet you we've never had a client come in and say, oh my gosh, I saved way too much money. What am I going to do with all this money? Right? So I guess my first thing is it's about balance. So save as much as you can without sacrificing your quality of life today. But find that balance. Everybody's balance is a little bit different, but kind of to use a real, like a starting point, no matter what I say in answer to this question, somebody's going to want to put in the comments like, well, I heard on this show or somebody else said this on this podcast. So let me just say 5% is a real good starting point. So if you want to have $50,000 of an income stream when you retire, probably $1 million gets that done for you. And, if things go as planned, probably doesn't run out of money through the rest of your retirement. If you wanted $100,000, then you probably want to save up $2 million. If you need $150,000 a year, $3 million. Probably bore you if I keep going on. But the only other thing I would add to that is the hype. I did want to say this. There's a lot of people out on social media. So social media is a lot of hyperbole, a lot of people who are not licensed or registered to give advice, but they certainly don't hesitate to provide it to you. And they usually speak in big words and get you all excited and hyped up about one thing or that. It's not really about that. It's really about not trying to be wasteful with your money. Like, try to be smart with your money. And what I mean by that, like a good example would be like if you have something I call bumps. If you get a new job, if you get a raise, if you inherit something, get a promotion at work, suddenly your cash flow is a little bit better than it was yesterday. Take those as an advantage, as an opportunity to save more. Instead of saying, now I'm going to out and get a bigger car, a better house, whatever. Maybe save a little bit more, again, find that balance. But those are great opportunities that, especially if you're younger, time's on your side. So that's what I would say to that. And avoid something that I often call, it's often phrased as like a fishbowl scenario, where, the goldfish grows as big as the aquarium that you put him in or her. I'm not going to get into that. But I guess the point is, I have seen in 20 some years, people that start to grow their income stream, suddenly they're buying more things, but they're not really saving anymore. And then they get to retirement time and they have regret. So especially if you're younger, if you're in your 20s and 30s, just keep plugging the same percentage away every year, and you won't be disappointed.
Okay, our second question is, when can I retire?
That's probably the most top 3 question, at least for sure. I guess I'd say, let me start this. This is where I start with folks. Remember that retirement is not really a destination, right? It's just it's kind of like an inflection point. It's a very important part of your life where you've spent your career earning your income. So you go out and do something, or maybe you're staying at home and doing it these days, but you're getting up in the morning and earning that income. It's flowing into your door, and then you choose what to do with it. And so even if you have like a year where you spend a lot of money, you just work harder or whatever, right? Put in some OT. But now you're talking about an inflection point, meaning I'm no longer working. I'm no longer earning that. Now I have to have all my assets that I've saved, hopefully, and now turning those income streams on. That has to now generate my income instead of coming from my employer. So, you have to remember a couple things. As you're making that shift, the timing feels really important because you're also probably right at an age, you're at that sweet spot in your career. You probably have never made more money than you are right now. And so to walk away from that is kind of a big deal. And so timing is important. So that's one thing. But I would say that it comes down to really what I would call your burn rate. A good way to look at it is your metabolism, right? Your financial metabolism. And what I mean by that is, okay, I'm going to go off on a tangent here, but I have a son, 21-year-old son, who, when he comes home from college, you think you have enough food in the cupboards, right? And in the fridge.
You never do, though.
No, it's insane. And I was that guy. I can't do that now. But his burn rate, his metabolism, he just goes way faster than I do, right? And so what's your metabolism in your household? Does your household, are you burning through? Can you live comfortably? We mentioned 50,000 earlier. Can you live on that? No problem. Are your debts paid off? Do you live extravagantly? Someone might look at 50,000 and go, that's cake. I could retire tomorrow on that. Other people might say, my gosh, how does someone live on 50,000, right? So it's really a dynamic kind of a topic, and you really have to, that's the beauty of having an advisor, is you usually have to spend that first meeting is really just kind of getting to know somebody, kind of like if you were going to a gym trainer and they were trying to figure out what you were trying to do. So I would definitely say learn that, and understand too, much like our bodies, your household burn rate, your metabolism, your financial metabolism changes over time. A lot of people, and a lot of planning doesn't go this deep, but we have done this with some clients that like it. Boy, when you retire, they want to just go for 5 to 10 years everywhere. That bucket list, they burn right through that bucket list now. And they do that because they think, well, we're healthy now. You never know how life changes. So let's go ahead and take advantage of it while it's there. And then they plan to slow down. So their burn rate's pretty high right out of the gates, and then they dial it down over time. So all those things are important. But what it all boils down to is the simple math is add up all your assets, consider like your regular income streams that you might have, like a pension that might be coming to you, Social Security, whenever you turn that on, and then factor in all your debts and expenses. And then, basically we use our planning software to show you if you'll run out of money or if not. And so then it gets into longevity. I hate putting a number on somebody's life, but we try to make sure that they won't run out of money. That's really what it all boils down to. And then the last thing I'll say on that question is everything I just talked about is financial. Mm-hmm. The one thing that so many people forget to think about is the emotional timing. And I know we've done videos. I know you've helped us edit those and put those together. A lot of people don't think about, am I ready? And you'd be surprised how many times people come in, ask us to kind of look at all those numbers and see if I can retire. And the answer is financially, yes. And they choose their 3 years, 4 or 5 years go by. They're still working because either they love their job, or they don't have this other thing over here on the other side of retirement that's pulling them out of their job. So they just say, why not just keep earning and enjoying my life right now? So that's my answer. That's a really long answer. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So what you're saying is I can't retire yet, unfortunately. No, I'm just kidding.
It depends on your burn rate.
All right. Our third question is, how can I ensure my money lasts through retirement?
Yeah. Okay. People don't want to outlive their money, right? We have a couple different things. People can define like a successful retirement in a couple of different ways. I'll give you two different extremes. One is I don't want to run out of money before I die. Like the common joke is I want to bounce my last check, but most people don't want that. But other people don't want to see their money go down at all. And they really, really want to pass on a certain amount or as much as they possibly can to their children. So other people are like, nah, they can fend for themselves. I did, so it's really your personal thing. But one of the things I would say when it comes to planning for making that money last is keep in mind there's two different things. One is one type of category, I should say, is predictable things that happen in life. So predictable things would be, your Social Security. Most people know roughly what that's going to be. The only thing they're not sure of is the timing of when they turn that income stream on. Pensions are usually very predictable income sources if you have that. Taxes, although the rates will change, the reality is you're going to get taxed throughout retirement on certain things. And if this law gets changed and you get a little break here, they usually make it up over here. So, the reality is you're going to get taxed. So just assume taxes will be there. RMDs, required minimum distributions, once you get into your 70s, roughly, you're forced to start taking things out of your retirement plan typically. Those are predictable. Those are easy to plan for. What you have on the other side of that equation is all the unpredictable things, something we call life, right? So let's think about that. So markets, right? That we all know the stock markets, not just the U.S., but all over the globe. They're all very unpredictable. Both the stock, the bond, and real estate's unpredictable. Most common one that people start thinking about is their health. Very unpredictable. And I won't even go into that because that seems like all the folks that are retired want to talk about their health. And it becomes a very prominent thing, trying to maintain as long as you can. And you have others in your family to think about. And I would say the other factor there too is also just your family. It's not usually just you or your spouse. You're usually worrying about your kids and other cousins and uncles and brothers and sisters. So it's a very busy time of your life, but it's usually a time when you're focusing over on the family. So the key, I think, to getting through the predictable and I'm trying not to hit this mic. It's really hard not to do that when you talk with your hands.
Talking with your hands.
The predictable and the unpredictable things, to bring that all together is something I joke about. You've seen it on our podcast before. I talk about the F word, which is in our office is flexibility. So we keep it clean, keep it PG. But flexibility is absolutely king. And there's like two different styles or thought processes that I have there, which is being resourceful. And what I mean by resourceful is a great example is a part-time job. And there, we talked on the last question, there's the financial reason people retire and then the emotional timing of it as well. Being resourceful and getting a part-time job can not only really better your numbers and get your cash flow going so you pull less off your investments, it can also be great for your psyche. You just you feel like, hey, I went and I did this for 15 hours a week and it helps pay for this. And I feel good. Maybe it was some physical stuff. Maybe it's just getting out of the house. It could be just social reasons. But for whatever purpose, if a part-time job fits you and it's available, a lot of folks moving into retirement, it's almost like a training retirement, right? You're kind of semi-retired. I don't know if that sounds cooler or not, but it feels less pressure. Okay. And then another thing is just that flexibility. Another great example, probably the best example, because I talked about burn rate before, is being willing to tighten your belt. I hate that phrase, but if things get rocky and something happens and you need to take a massive distribution out of your account because you need to help a family member or pay off a debt or something like that, maybe you need to take the next year, instead of going to 3 different vacations, maybe you just go to 1, or you change where you go and kind of tighten that belt a little bit. But for a guy who seems to, his belt goes 1 extra notch every couple of years, I don't know if that's really, I don't know if I should be giving advice on that, but I'm talking about finance here.
The finance belt.
That's right. The financial belt, yes.
Our fourth question is, what investment strategy is suitable for my retirement goals and risk tolerance?
Oh, that's like a formal question, right?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more like...
down to brass tacks.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I kind of hate that question.
Okay. We can throw it out. I'm just kidding.
No, I hate it because it's kind of like, I guess I'm always the analogy guy, but it's almost like walking into a grocery store and asking the clerk, what do most people buy? You know, I mean, there's so many things that are out there that you could invest your money in, that you could pull off the shelves in that analogy. You really need to select things that are in your risk appetite, if you will. Kind of, I really am blending the grocery store with the investment side, but it's really very similar to how you manage your money. There's a lot out there. And I think that's probably where really an advisor plays a huge role. Most of the folks, to be quite honest with you, most folks get intimidated when the reason they're coming to us is they had money in their 401k, but in the 401k, you typically have just, small number of options, and you kind of do what you kind of set it and forget it. And then all of a sudden when you retire, you have hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in your 401k, in your retirement plan, plus you're merging it with other things. And suddenly a mistake could mean tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you having that professional advice is probably a really good thing, at least for the folks we work with. And plus it means they can go out and enjoy their retirement. They don't have to stare at the computer screen. But I mean, overall, I would say number one is diversification. So that's the first thing you deal with. But you just really have to understand. I know I always use the amusement park analogy in our office. So when you go to an amusement park and you're looking at all the rides, you get to see the ride and you say, it's a tilt-a-whirl, I can do that. But then you look at the monster coaster and you're like, I can't go on that. I don't have the stomach for it, right? Mm-hmm. And so you choose not to go on that ride. So there are investments, and even though you might not be able to recognize them like you would at an amusement park, the risk, I should say, and a good advisor would sit right with you and say, hey, this is the roller coaster right here. Are you sure you want to do this? And if you do, it's just a little bit of that, you know what I mean? So you kind of balance it out. So your overall risk is in a place where you're good. The real simple answer would be, more technical answer, I should say, would be a typically, if you set a starting point for most retirees, you'd say what we call balanced portfolios. In that you're very roughly talking about a 60-40 split, 60% of your money being, in stocks or equities, and 40% being in bonds or other fixed income type things. That's a super generic answer, and then we kind of start there and then custom fit it for everybody. But a good advisor kind of spots what your pressure points or pain points are and gets you comfortable. So gets you ready for that ride. Awesome.
So the advisor is always on your side.
That's right. That's a good way to put it.
Do you want to talk a little bit about how we are a fiduciary firm?
Fiduciaries. Yeah. You know what? It's funny. Years ago, no one even knew that word. Oh, that's another F word. I probably should stay away from that one. But no one knew what a fiduciary was. But I give a lot of credit to the CFP board, Certified Financial Planners, that board and other, I think, stellar kind of organizations in our industry have been pushing the idea of that fiduciary standard. So a fiduciary is basically, I guess the easiest way to say it is I would recommend to you to invest your money the same way I would if I were sitting in your exact circumstances, right? Which is why at our office, we invest a lot of our own personal assets in the same kinds of portfolios that we often recommend to our clients. It makes a lot of sense for them, then it should make a lot of sense for us, assuming our circumstances are exactly the same. But that's what a fiduciary is. Most people who do their homework are really looking for a fiduciary these days. And I think I've always thought it made a lot of sense, which is why we made that change years and years ago. But more and more people are looking for it. So that makes me happy.
So you touched on this in an earlier answer to one of the questions, and that is, how is the market/economy performing? I know earlier you mentioned that is a big part of retirement planning. And so what would your answer to that be when a client comes in or a potential client comes in asking that question?
So this sounds like it almost sounds like a cold and uncaring answer. but it doesn't matter. And I say it that way. I guess I'm trying to be dramatic, accidentally dramatic, but a retirement, I've been in the business long enough to understand that retirements are not going to fail or succeed because of what cycle the economy is in or what a specific market did or who's in office. So this is a very important year to say, like, I've lived through a lot of different administrations so far, a lot of different, whether it's Congress, whether it's the Oval Office, or other countries that are going through changes. And that typically doesn't change the success or failure of what we're doing here or what our clients are experiencing. The reality is the markets just go through cycles. And just because it's in the middle of this cycle or that cycle doesn't mean that you shouldn't be invested or stay invested. Yeah, you might tweak it a little bit, but here I go with another analogy. We all love, I love the beach. Do you like the beach, Anna?
I do like the beach.
All right, I can ask you a question. All right. So when you go to the beach, how long have you been to the beach? Like many years or just a couple times in your life?
A lot, yeah.
Okay. So when you go down to the beach to set up for the day, you can immediately spot the people who are there for the first time ever because where do they set their blankets? Right down by the water.
Yep.
And you think to yourself, it's low tide. I checked. They're going to be in trouble. And what happens? A couple hours later, they're sleeping on their blanket, and all of a sudden the wave comes up and just washes them away. Right?
Every time.
Not washes them away, but just and they're like, "Oh, how did this happen?" And that's kind of the way the market is. Those of us who have been there year after year know that it's going to go out and then it's going to come back in again. It's going to go up. It's going to go down, and so you just prepare. And the tides are super predictable, like to the minute almost, right? But the markets are not. So although they're not predictable in when they do things, we know that it's inevitable that they will go up and they will come down. They really have to. That's kind of, it's almost like a set of lungs that have to breathe. And just because the lungs are empty short term doesn't mean you're going to say, I'm not going to take another breath. You keep breathing and breathing out. So I think it's important for folks to understand that one of the greatest things, in my opinion, that an advisor serves for their clients is helping them understand, almost like having a personal tour guide when you go to the beach, who is paying attention to all that stuff for you. So when you get up although this is a guy thing. So guys, the first thing we do at the beach, we usually open our phones and check our weather apps. I just think it's funny. All the wives ask the guys, like, what's the weather today? But having a good advisor will kind of always have a gauge on what the weather is. So even though I'm telling you, don't pay attention to the market cycles what I'm saying is not to turn a blind eye to what's going on, but to realize that it's not going to probably affect your overall well-being, but it does pay to have somebody like an advisor paying attention to say, hey, it's going to be kind of a windy day today, so you wanted to go fishing, but it's probably better to do this over here. Or, hey, it's a great beach day, and this will be the last one because the next 2 days are kind of stormy. It's really about, weathermen are working on probabilities, right? Our business is all about probabilities. We can't predict the exact time markets will move in a direction, but we are saying, like, hey, based on probability, based on the thousands of times this has happened, it's probably a good time to maybe take a little bit out of here and move it over here. But you'll never see us just say, tuck it all into your mattress. That's usually a self-defeating kind of purpose. So we don't usually do that. So our job is usually, as you mentioned, fiduciary, and our money, personal monies usually stay in there. And so that's what we preach it to our clients as well.
That's awesome. That's a great analogy too.
I got so many. I live for analogies. So anyway, it's just easy. There's so many things in life that just keep repeating themselves. And we usually just try to figure out where you're coming from, what experience you have. And I'm glad that you go to the beach. This analogy would have just absolutely been horrible if you'd never went to the beach.
Yeah, if I've never gone to the beach. Yeah, if it was more of a lake girl.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I could probably figure something out for lakes, but let's stick to the beach for now.
We'll stick to the beach. Perfect. That's all I have for you today, Bob.
Did this go like you thought it would?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I liked it. It was fun to be on this side of the mic.
Yeah. And I like being on the camera, actually, surprisingly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. It's lonely over here, so I would love the company. So we'll see if we get you on here for more.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.